Jordan Love didn't become a varsity starting quarterback till halfway through his junior year. He was a 2-star recruit that only received an offer from one FBS school. So how did Love go from overlooked to an NFL quarterback? We're about to find out, because this is what they aren't telling you about the rise of Jordan Love. Jordan Love grew up in Bakersfield, California. When he was born, his dad Orban wanted to name him Michael Jordan Love, but his mom wasn't thrilled about that name choice, so they decided to compromise and give him the first name Jordan. Orban was a police officer, but also a former high school quarterback. He would tell everyone, "My son is going to be a quarterback in the NFL one day." But then tragedy struck. One day, Orban's doctors changed his blood pressure medication, and soon after, he started exhibiting weird behavior, acting nothing like himself. A few days later, he took his own life. Jordan was just 14 years old at the time. Jordan wanted to quit football after his father's passing, but his mom told him to just give it one more year and then he could call it quits if he wanted to. Before his father passed, Jordan was the backup QB on his school's JV team. He was undersized too, standing at 5'6", 130. But Jordan listened to his mother's advice and gave football one final shot his sophomore year. That season, he went out and won the starting QB job on JV. This was a transformative moment in Jordan's life, as he finally felt he could actually be a good quarterback. Despite being the starting QB on JV his sophomore season, he didn't start his junior year as the varsity team's QB1. He was actually the backup till midway through the season. While many other QBs around the nation already held multiple scholarship offers, Jordan was just becoming a starter. Recruiting-wise, he was in a terrible spot, as many of the schools had already sent their scholarship offers out to the QBs they wanted in Jordan's high school class of 2016. By Love's senior season, he had grown 8 inches from his freshman year, but he was still skinny, weighing in at 170 pounds. As the team's full-time starter his senior year, he threw for 2,148 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. On the ground, he ran for 806 yards and 8 touchdowns. Those are good numbers, but not really ones that are going to get a ton of scouts out and at your games. As a result, Love only received an offer from one FBS school, Utah State. Jordan took his only offer and ran with it. Arriving on Utah State's campus at just 17 years old, he redshirted his first season. During that redshirt year, he overhauled his diet so he could gain weight and spent hours upon hours in the weight room to put on more muscle. The work paid off though. Jordan entered the following season, technically his freshman season, weighing 220 pounds. Then, after the 6th game of his freshman year, Jordan was named the team's starting quarterback. He finished his first collegiate season completing 54% of his passes for 1,600 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, while also rushing for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, his first collegiate season wasn't great, but everything changed for Love the following year. His sophomore year, Love had multiple games with over 400 passing yards. He even had one game where he was just 9 passing yards shy of breaking the 500-yard mark. He broke the school record for most passing yards and passing touchdowns in a single season, and helped his team, who went 6-7 the year prior, go 11-2. Love finished that 2018 season completing 64% of his passes for over 3,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 7 rushing touchdowns. After this record-breaking season, Love was projected to be a first-round pick once he was draft eligible the following year. After a dream sophomore season, things went south for Love's junior year. Head coach Matt Wells left for the job at Texas Tech, which greatly affected Love's performance. His junior year, Love had multiple 3-interception games, multiple games with a completion percentage under 52%, and the team regressed, going 7-6. Jordan finished his junior year by completing 61% of his passes for 3,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. That means he was 1 interception away from tripling his interception number from the season prior. Despite the big regression his junior year, Jordan Love declared for the 2020 NFL Draft. Depending on where you looked, Jordan Love was going late first round, early second round in mock drafts. Some of the big knocks on him during the pre-draft process was his slow processing time on the field, poor decision making, and lack of play versus competitive schools. He was one of the biggest boom or bust players in the whole draft that year due to his size. Love now stood at 6'4", 225. Long gone was the tiny 5'6", 130 freshman. freshman, and his arm talent. Love's floor was low, but his ceiling was sky high. Because of this, he did get compared at times to Patrick Mahomes during the pre-draft process, who was also just coming off his first Super Bowl win. Draft night arrived, and Love was selected 26th overall by the Packers, who traded up to draft him. And as we all know, the move stunned the league and fans, as Aaron Rodgers just led the Packers to an NFC Championship game just a few months prior. Love was not active for a single game during his rookie season, as he was listed as the third-string QB on the depth chart behind Tim Boyle. But when Boyle left in free agency the following year, Love finally became Rodgers' backup. He made his NFL debut September 12, 2021 in relief of Rodgers during a blowout loss versus the Saints. Love completed 6 of 8 passes, but also fumbled. When Aaron Rodgers tested positive for COVID and couldn't play in the team's Week 9 matchup versus the Chiefs, Jordan Love was finally going to make his first NFL start. This was his opportunity to prove all the people who said he was a bad draft pick wrong, but he didn't do that. He actually just gave the doubters more reasons to say why he was a bad pick. Love struggled mightily in his first NFL start, completing just 55% of his passes for 190 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception as the Packers lost the game 13-7. After this one game, many questioned if Love was even good enough to be Rodgers' successor once the time came. The next game Love got to see significant snaps in that season was in Week 18 versus the Lions. The Packers had already clinched their playoff spot, so they sat Rodgers for the second half of the game. In those 2 quarters, Love completed 58% of his passes for 134 yards, 1 touchdown, but also 2 interceptions. So by this point, Love still hadn't proven that he was worthy of a first-round pick. Heading into his 3rd season in the league, Love was still Rodgers' backup. But during a Week 12 Sunday Night Football matchup with the Eagles, Rodgers had to leave the game due to injury. So Love was thrust into this primetime matchup down 37-23 with just over 10 minutes left in the game. With 9 minutes remaining, he threw a 63-yard touchdown pass to Christian Watson to make it a 1-score game. After that, the Eagles went down the field and hit a field goal on their next drive to make it a 10-point game. Love got the ball with just over 2 minutes left and drove the Packers down to the red zone to make it a 1-score game yet again with a field goal. The Packers then failed to recover their onside kick attempt and lost. But this game was the first time the narrative started to change about Jordan Love. It was the first time people said, hey, maybe this guy can actually be Aaron Rodgers' replacement. After the Packers missed the playoffs that season for the first time in 4 years, speculation rose on if Rodgers would be a Packer the following season. Aaron said he was contemplating retirement, but after opting to continue his career, he requested and received a trade to the Jets. The moment had finally come. It was time for Love to answer the call. The most important season of Jordan Love's whole football career was upon him. Would he show everyone he was the right choice, or just another draft bust? The pressure on Love was immense. He was about to take over as the starting QB for a franchise who only had 2 starting quarterbacks over the past 3 decades, both of whom will be Hall of Famers. When Love made the start for the Packers Week 1, he was only the 3rd different quarterback to start a Week 1 game for Green Bay since 1993. Things did get off to a great start for Love, though. He led the Packers to a Week 1 blowout win versus the Bears, throwing for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns in the process. Things weren't as great Week 2 when they lost by 1 versus the Falcons. Love still threw another 3 touchdowns in that game, though. The following week, Jordan led the Packers to a crazy comeback versus the Saints after they were down 17-0 in the 4th quarter. But after that miraculous win, things started to go downhill for Jordan Love and Green Bay. They lost their next 4 games, and during that stretch, Jordan had only thrown 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Green Bay was now staring at one of the worst records in the league at 2-5 and was tied for last in their division. However, Love is mentally tough and didn't spiral in this tough moment. To avoid a 5-game losing streak, Jordan played an extremely efficient and clean game versus the Rams, completing 76% of his passes for 228 yards, 1 touchdown, and no turnovers. Despite all this, Jordan's true breakout game came on Thanksgiving versus the Lions. Heading into the game, the Lions were favored by a whopping 8.5 points. For good reason though, as they were 8-2 and one of the hottest teams in the league. Love then completed 68% of his passes for 268 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no turnovers to lead the Packers to a huge upset victory. Things came full circle for Jordan Love though this past week. He faced off with the team he made his NFL debut against, or should I say his not so great NFL debut against, the Kansas City Chiefs. Except this time around, he flipped the script, completing 69% of his passes for 267 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no turnovers to lead his team to a victory that brought them back to 500 and, more importantly, moved them into the last playoff spot in the NFC. In just a few weeks, Love led this team from holding the 6th pick in the draft to holding the final spot in the playoffs. And more importantly, proved that his dad was right all along. Another player that was super underrated and is now taking the league by storm is Puka Nacua. If you want to check out his story, click this here.